window!
Sex slaves, the products traded by the world's fastest growing illegal industry.
The woman is actually a commodity that could be reused over and over and over again.
And they are here, hidden right next door.
Nueva York, Los Ángeles, Las Vegas, Chicago.
All over.
Todos, España.
Girls as young as 12 plucked from their homes and trafficked to the U.S.
I was 14 years old. They used to treat me as an animal.
They had policemen who were clients. So where does a girl run if the clients aren't protecting them?
Emocionalmente estás bien. No tanto.
This is nothing more than modern-day slavery. Wars have been fought to end that in this country. This is not something that we can tolerate in America.
We'll go inside America's secret slave dens.
¿Cuántos mujeres hay? Tres.
To a Mexican city where boys are trained to be pimps and women seldom escape. A dangerous journey to the center of the sex slave trade.
Okay, so she's asking to put the camera down. No se ve, mira.
To Pimp City.
Pretty big operation. You see there's actually 9 different law enforcement agencies involved right here. There are dozens of agents. A lot of them are undercover, so they cannot be filmed. And they're targeting 2 different places where they believe there is prostitution and sex trafficking happening.
This multi-agency operation in Houston, Texas, is part of a nationwide effort to break up sex trafficking rings across the U.S. Tonight, they are going after a sophisticated network of human traffickers and pimps doing business out of a suburban cantinas.
First look, it looks just like a regular bar. We call it a cantina here, and in a lot of cases, these cantinas are sort of storefronts for essentially our brothels.
You can see there are about 15 women lined up here. These were the women that were working here, and they're going to show us some of the rooms in the back right now.
As you can see, you've got beds that are here where they're consummating the prostitution. Just a makeshift type bed with a drape for a little privacy, but not much. This one is actually a room, so it's a little bit more privacy.
So yeah, so there's just basically a mattress, a small bed, and it's this is like a
10 by 10?
10 by 10 room. This is not even finished wall, it's all
very
open up.
Very cheaply built, very quick. What we have in places like this, you have a ledger of the girls that work here. As you can see, the X's, these are the amount of tricks that they've done tonight, and they will pay him a fee and grab a napkin, condom, and this gel, and they'll go to the room. See right there is a package of a condom.
And it's just dozens and dozens of men coming in and out of places like this. And women just having
sex, 15 minutes, and just move on to the next guy.
Authorities believe many of these women could be sex slaves, brought to the U.S. from Latin America against their will. They are the merchandise, bought, sold, and traded by a vast international network of human traffickers and pimps. During the raid tonight, the women and their clients are arrested, but the pimps who traffic them here remain free. The sex slave trade is a global business, and the American market is dominated by pimps and traffickers from one Mexican state called Tlaxcala. No place in the world sends more sex slaves to the U.S. And at the center of the trade is one small city of just 10,000 people. Its name is Tenancingo.
Tenancingo has spawned, frankly, a cottage industry of victimization. It's disturbing on many, many levels. They're family-led organizations that specialize in trafficking young girls, prostituting them in Mexico, bringing them to the U.S., forcing them into prostitution here.
The Tenancingo ring has spread throughout the U.S. from the border towns up through Texas and California, from Houston to Atlanta and Miami, and up the East Coast, all the way to New York. The trafficking ring's hub is in Corona, Queens. This is the end of the journey for a lot of girls. Many of them, at some stage, end up held captive in what seem like quiet streets.
So a lot of the sex trafficking is happening right here?
Yes, this is the most concentrated location that, from previous investigation and current investigations, that we have come across human traffickers and rescued many victims.
Elvin Hernandez is an investigator for the Department of Homeland Security, which coordinates international anti-sex trafficking operations. He's helped rescue dozens of women from neighborhoods just like this one.
Many of these houses around here, what they'll do is they'll rent rooms and they'll stay there for maybe a couple months. They can typically have more than one apartment. They can actually have up to maybe 3, 4 that we've seen in the past. And the reason for that is because they have different girls set up in different apartments. So they'll try to isolate the girls that they bring in from Mexico, being forced into prostitution, and that way they don't have communication with each other.
So this is the house?
Yes, this is the house right here.
But there was a ring that was operating from this house?
That is correct.
So it's really crazy to think because, you know, we're in the middle of Queens and we walk down and this looks just like a regular house. And to imagine that there's a sex trafficking ring that was being operated from this house is crazy.
Yes, it's just right across the street from a public school, as you can tell.
Yeah, exactly.
And they could actually house themselves anywhere. If you're not aware of how traffickers operate, you're not going to think anything's wrong. You know, it's just a normal course of the day.
Is this a profitable business?
Human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world because it's all about the money. Think about it. Drugs, you sell once. Women and children, you sell time and time again.
I think that this is nothing more than modern-day slavery. Wars have been fought to end that in this country, and this is not something that we can tolerate in America.
For those who traffic in sex slaves, it's lucrative. They often get their merchandise, the women, for free, through kidnapping and manipulation, and they sell the girls over and over again, typically $35 for every 15 minutes. A pimp with 3 girls, working 7 days a week, 365 days a year, by our estimates, can make $500,000. No one knows how many sex slaves there actually are in the US. Estimates range wildly from 4,000 to 100,000. Whatever the number, it's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year business, much of it controlled by the Tenancingo ring.
This is Roosevelt Avenue right there.
What do you see on a regular day here?
This, on a regular day and a nice day, these streets will be full of people. You'll have guys hanging out on corners sometimes. You'll handing out cards in the corner, trying to find clients to bring to the brothel houses.
So, and this all happens out in the open, right?
This
here?
all happens out in the open. It's an everyday course of business.
This is basically the length of walking I'm going to be doing, you guys, and I'm going to be rolling the whole time.
We want to see inside the Tenancingo Pimp's U.S. operation. So we send our colleague Rainer out into the busiest part of Queens, New York, with a hidden camera.
I'm here.
I'll try to have a long conversation if I get solicited. All right?
Yeah, I'm going to put it on mute.
Guys, what do you want? Huh? What do you want? Oh, no, what do you have? Oh, this? Oh, okay. What do you chicas?
Did you see him? Yeah, he's just back there.
It takes Rainer less than 5 minutes, and a man offers him a girl.
Okay, so Rainer just started talking to a guy on the corner there. There's actually a New York City Police Department van right in front of us, but it looks like he's following this guy, so he's taking him somewhere. William, another producer, he's gonna walk out and see if he can follow them. Oh, he's right there. Okay, so they went around the corner. They're going down the street. Oh, nice. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So he was just walking down that alley with that guy. I'm not sure how safe this is. Okay, so Rainer is asking, where is it? I mean, this is sketchy stuff. Basically, he just asked a guy on the corner, and now he's just walking down an alley with this guy, and we don't know where they went.
Okay. And if... No, I just think...
No way.
Okay.
Just put the phone out so I can hear you.
Our colleague Rainer is about to enter a brothel in Queens, New York. We're on the trail of the Tenancingo sex trafficking ring.
Are the girls here pretty? Are the girls here pretty? ¿Son bonitas aquí?
No.
¿Cómo?
Yes.
¿Ya? ¿Cuántas mujeres hay?
Tres.
Son tres. ¿Y lo mismo cuarto?
¿Ya?
¿Lo mismo cuarto?
No, cada quien tiene su cuarto.
Ok, muy bien. She's one of them? ¿Puede...?
Esta otra, mira. Te digo, me chingó.
That was good. ¿Bonita o cómo? Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Okay.
I think maybe it's time for Rainer to come out.
We're all feeling nervous about Rainer's safety, so I call him and pretend to be his wife to try and get him out of the brothel.
¿Cómo? No puede. Okay. Tengo una llamada. Es mi esposa. Can I make a call?
Ah, ya sabe.
Okay. Can I make a call? Hi, honey. How are you? I'm okay. I should probably head back.
Our cross street is 81st, so we're going to be on 37 and 81st. Okay? See you there. Yeah. Coming in.
All right, so I'm still rolling. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's actually
What happened?
it's more pervasive than I thought. It just felt really seedy. I mean, it was just like the basement of a house. The walls were very bare, and you could hear clearly like
Everything
people
that was
having
happening.
sex.
And
on
how
the
did
other
you
side.
feel about the women?
I felt bad. I mean, they were there. There was a steady stream of men coming in and out of there as I was walking out.
We don't know if those men are Tenancingo pimps, but we can tell you this brothel is right in the heart of an area on an international law enforcement watch list, an area where pimps from Mexico bring their girls.
The woman is actually a commodity that could be reused over and over and over again with no limit, you know. These girls are just taken from a very innocent, sanitized environment and just thrown to live in hell. They've been trafficked for 10 years, 5 years. You know, could you imagine the amount of people they had to service or forced to work? It's just unbelievable.
It was in a house just like this one that the pimps of Tenancingo kept a woman we'll call Miranda. She was a slave, forced to have sex since she was a child. She's agreed to talk to us as long as we don't use her real name and disguise her face.
I used to walk around here to look for the client's address.
Driving in this neighborhood with Miranda, I can tell she's anxious.
I feel unsafe because the clients who paid to stay with me, I'm scared that they can see me in the street.
So even in a day like today that you're with us and where you are disguised, you still wouldn't feel comfortable walking down the streets of Queens?
Right now, I'm a little bit scared. I'm scared that associates can see me and I don't know what can happen.
She's talking about the man who owned her, one of the notorious pimps of Tenancingo. She's still afraid, and for good reason.
I really feel that I wasn't a human body, because I was working really hard, making money, just making money. Since I got home, he asked me, where is the money? And he used to count the condoms.
Count the condoms?
Yes.
Just to make sure that you had had sex
Yes.
with enough men for him to make money.
If there was a missing condom and I have not made the money of that condom, he used to beat me.
Because you would think that you would be keeping the money away from him.
Yes. He made me to work overtime, almost 24 hours. I saw around 60
men a week?
No, per day.
60 men a day?
Yes. So by the end of the day, I was bleeding. Every time I was telling him I can't work anymore. So and he used to buy a cream. So and that way I be able to work. Sometimes the clients used to see blood.
What would they say?
They used to tell me, bitch. They used to treat me as an animal. They never think that what they are doing to us is bad. They never think that we are forced to do that.
Miranda's story is cruel and brutally common.
You'd be amazed when you hear stories where, people tell you, hey, listen, he beat me and beat me over and over, and he beat me with objects or beat me with a baseball bat.
The sad truth is, few women escape sex slavery. Only about 200 women a year are rescued by law enforcement nationwide.
So a lot of people, I think, why don't these women speak out? Why don't they go to the police?
They're scared. Many of these traffickers will tell the women, oh, where are you gonna go? You're gonna call the police? They're gonna arrest you. You're here illegally. You're gonna be thrown in jail. They have nowhere to go.
Fear, intimidation, and threats. It's how pimps keep their girls in line.
So is it rarely that they tell you that they have a pimp, that they're working for someone?
Correct. They'll try to avoid any connection to their pimp. Most of the time we learn is because they have a child, and the child is being held back in Mexico, and that the pimp's family has her child.
They target young girls. They basically use the world's oldest lure, love, romance, promise of a better life. And before these girls know it, they're in the world's oldest profession.
And that's exactly what happened to Miranda. It started in a park on a summer afternoon.
One day, my friend introduced me to a man by the name of Rodolfo.
Miranda had fun with Rodolfo. They talked and laughed all afternoon. They even took photos. But then, the sun started setting.
He told me that he was going to give me a ride, go back to my house. Instead, he took me to his house. He told me that he was going to introduce her mom to me. There was her daughters and her grandsons. He left me there. He told me that he was going to look for a jacket because it was cold. He told me I would be right back. I just feel like something was not okay, and I feel scared.
Miranda waited for hours with the family in their living room. She asked if she could leave, but they said no. The man finally did come home. He was drunk.
That night, he been very violent. I have not a way to escape. I was on his hands and I was on his house.
That night, the man, whose name was not in fact Rodolfo, raped and beat her several times.
I was 14 years old. He told me that even if I was screaming, no iba a importar porque nadie me iba a escuchar y nadie me iba a ayudar. I thought that I was not be able to see the light again.
From that day onwards, Miranda was forced into prostitution. And while the pimp's mom made sure she didn't run away, his sister taught Miranda how to put on a condom and how to act like a prostitute.
She taught me how to walk and how to speak to clients.
In Tenancingo, she discovered sex slavery is a family affair.
He used to say that if I left him, he was going to kill me or my family. And he used to tell me, I'm your owner, you are my property.
They basically use the world's oldest lure, love, romance, promise of a better life, and before these girls know it, they're in the world's oldest profession.
Era muy romántico, decía, pero que en especial él se había enamorado de mí el día que me conoció. Que no, que porque un amigo de él había tenido un problema similar al que él tenía.
The pimps, because the women being prostituted are their women, and their way to control their women is to rape them. But because they belong to the pimps don't feel like they have to use condoms. Very frequently the women will be getting pregnant. Then the pimps will force the women to undergo abortions, which is really painful for very traditional, very deeply Catholic women who don't want to have an abortion under any circumstance.
Yo decía que yo no podía ir a la policía sola, yo no sé. Además, el miedo, el pánico que le tenía yo a los policías estaba en mí, entonces no podía ir.
Who are some of these women being trafficked? Well, we're seeing mostly young women and many indigenous women. So they're not only isolated because they're Mexican living in the United States and they don't know the US, they don't even speak Spanish in many cases. So if they
Because they're indigenous.
Because they're indigenous. So they don't even know how to ask for help in Spanish in some cases.
The women are kept isolated, alone, away from friends and family, living in homes provided by the traffickers without really the means to communicate or to escape easily.
It is a family business. What we're seeing out of Tenancingo is that you have grandparents involved, and it's not just grandpa, it's also grandma is managing the books. She's laundering the money, she's getting the proceeds that are being sent. The pimps are making, on each woman, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Do you think you could have made that money with anything else, working any other job?
No creo, porque en primera solamente el negocio de la droga, pero pues yo no he conocido gente de eso. O sea, lo que prácticamente uno viene haciendo es lo que uno conoce en Tenancingo. Ahí es lo que uno hace, lo que uno conoce, ¿no?
Es la prostitución.
Sí.
A buyer can run $35 for 15 minutes on the low end to $50 for 15 minutes if he calls and asks for a girl in English. If he calls in Spanish, he gets the lower rate. If he calls in English, the rate goes up. They started talking about bounty. I was like, wait, what's a bounty? And they'd say, bounty, you know, like the paper towel. If she's menstruating, they would shove wads of paper towel into their vagina to prevent them from bleeding on the buyers. A woman will see 30 men in the course of a night. I do have some clients who are forced to work what's called a double shift. So that would be a 20-hour period where they have to see 60 men. That would be 7 days a week, and there are no days off.
For many women trafficked to the United States, this is their first stop. We're in Mexico City on our hunt for the people who control much of the sex slave trade to the US. Prostitution is legal here, but Mexican authorities just can't keep up with the explosion of sex trafficking.
We're driving through one of the largest markets here in Mexico City. It's called La Merced, and this is the area where the prostitutes are brought to work. This is also where Miranda came. She was forced to work here. This is where she first worked as a prostitute. And we're not allowed to film openly because we hear that there are pimps everywhere and they're controlling everything that the prostitutes do. So we have our undercover gear. That's why I have these glasses. There's a camera here, and Alice has a camera on her shirt as well. This area is amazing.
The majority of the estimated 1,200 women who work here are trafficked through Tenancingo and nearby towns. The pimps who own them bring them here to train and initiate them. Then, they'll move the most attractive and most profitable to the United States.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Me llamo Mariana. ¿Estás bien? ¿Hace cuánto tiempo que trabajas aquí? Medio año.
A lot of the girls are under 20 years old, some as young as 12. They stand against the fence waiting for business, a line of men watching them closely.
¿Y no te da miedo trabajar aquí con...? No. ¿Quieres que me va? ¿No quieres hablar con nosotros? No. She asks us to leave. She says that we're affecting her work, that her clients won't want to talk to her if we're here, so she doesn't really want to talk. But if you look, and I can see there's these men that just look at us, and they just stand and look at the women, and are looking at us now that we're talking to them.
This area is strictly controlled by gangs, and sometimes the men don't just look. As we're speaking to this girl, we notice a figure edging closer and closer to us.
¿Tú tienes un padrote? No, seguro. Okay. ¿Tu familia está toda... ¿Dónde? Lejos. ¿Dónde? Lejos. Perdón. Okay. Gracias. Adiós.
For the girl's own safety, we decide to move away.
Is that the guy that was looking? Yeah.
We see girl after girl waiting, supposedly alone, but closely watched.
Sí, estás bien. De salud, de todo, estás bien. Sí, y emocionalmente estás bien. Pues... No tanto. ¿Qué pasa? ¿Ya te están mirando cuando estamos hablando ahora? ¿Alguien mirándonos o no? ¿No? ¿Y por qué no estás bien?
Advocates say that around 8 women are killed here every month at the hands of clients or pimps. They're just a few of the victims of the nation's lucrative prostitution network.
Podemos decir que Tenancingo se ha desarrollado como un centro de operaciones de tratantes de personas con fines de explotación sexual.
The PGR, the Mexican federal prosecutor, tries to keep track of suspected traffickers.
Entonces eso es como un diagrama de los grupos traficantes.
Y de la relación que existe entre ellos que no la habíamos identificado. Hay incluso casos donde sabemos que la hermana de un tratante es explotada por otro.
Wow. Y están todos conectados, lógicamente.
Conectados, que no necesariamente trabajando para la misma organización.
So this is really interesting. This is basically a diagram with all the different sex trafficking rings. And what they discovered is that they're all connected. So this is more than just a family organization. It's almost like a town or a state, the state of Tlaxcala, where Tenancingo is. It's a state organization where all these groups are sort of connected. So yeah, it seems almost like these women, they're treated like merchandise. Some of them are transferred from family to family, from trafficker to trafficker. How many groups are there? How many networks are there?
Nosotros hemos identificado más o menos como a grandes rasgos que no nada más es en Tenancingo, sino más o menos 12 grupos que están trabajando en esa zona, no solo Tenancingo.
This is really an incredible sight to see. I mean, now you start seeing all the connections and how the families operate and how they're all connected with each other. How Miranda is just a small piece of this puzzle.
The PGR has discovered it's not just pimps who buy and sell women for sex. Narcos are turning their hands to trading women instead of drugs. And they're learning their techniques from the families of Tenancingo.
Podemos decir que es mucho más fácil traficar con una víctima, llevarla a otro país o otro estado porque es una persona, entonces es muy normal llevar a una persona o ir en compañía de alguien respecto de las drogas, ¿no? Que llevar una mercancía ilícita pues sí puede ser revisado y puede ser detenido, pero aquí no, porque son mujeres, son personas y entonces la movilidad es mucho más fácil, no hay una limitación en ello.
Advocates say that even when Mexican authorities discover a sex trafficking scheme, real arrests are rare, and that's mostly because of corruption. From crooked police officers on the take to party leaders accused of running prostitution rings, a whole range of people stand to profit from these women being trafficked as sex slaves to the United States.
Most of the survivors says that they had policemen, judges, attorneys, persecutors who were clients. Some of these girls, like one of the ones who was exploited in Puebla, she talked about 30 policemen with their uniform. Suddenly, they started to film them photograph them, and rape them in uniform. She was 12 years old. So where does a girl run away if the clients are who aren't protecting them?
According to advocates like Rosie, nowhere are authorities closer to the trade than in Tenancingo, our next stop.
If we decided right now we wanted to drive to Tenancingo and go around with our cameras and talk to pimps,
Now it's very dangerous because the authorities are very close. I think it's more dangerous than ever.
This crime, I think, is different because basically it's modern day slavery. These women do not keep the money that is given to them for these sexual services. Part of it will go to whomever is tasked with driving them around the neighborhood, and they are specifically directed to wire the rest of the money to the traffickers' families, again, in Tenancingo.
The drivers might be connected to the pimps, they may be family members of the pimps, and sometimes you have drivers who are also pimps.
La mitad del dinero que tú ganas, si ganaste como 1,000, ellos se quedan con la mitad.
Los taxistas. Y algunos de esos taxistas son taxistas normales, de yellow cabs.
Sí, son normales. Cualquiera que lo viera diría que no son nada. Yo me sorprendí también.
The drivers print up business cards. They're called business cards, chica cards. Sometimes they have a picture of a naked woman or a very scantily clad woman, but the drivers realize that that is a little obvious and they may be arrested for distributing these cards. So now they have floral bouquets on them, or they advertise candy, or sometimes even children's birthday parties.
Most of the survivors says that they had policemen, judges who were clients. So where does a girl run away if the clients are who aren't protecting them?
So the police themselves are your clients?
Ya. Una vez entró un policía conmigo y me dijo que, bueno, quería tener el servicio, ¿no? Y yo le dije que llorando que no, que me tenían secuestrada, que yo quería irme, que me ayudara. Y me dijo, no, pues ¿sabes qué? O sea, yo vine a pagarte tu servicio, no que me contaras tu historia.
Recuerda que un presidente que entra allá busca a los que son más llegados, ¿no?
Más poderosos.
Sí, les dice, pues, hagan mi campaña. ¿Con cuánto aportas tú? Y uno que tiene dice, no, pues yo te pongo $20,000. Otro, no, pues yo pongo 15,000. Otro, no, pues 20,000. Ok. Entonces, cuando él gana la campaña del presidente, ellos les da su parte de ellos y les da la protección de todos. Cuando yo me agarraron, antes de que yo me agarraran, la misma judicial me decía, dame $30,000 y te dejo ir. Dime tú.
En México.
En México.
So the police who arrested you in Mexico told you that if you gave them $30,000, they would let you go. ¿Y tú qué hiciste?
¿De dónde voy a agarrar $30,000?
So we're about to enter Tenancingo, and we're on the main road here. This is the road that crosses all the towns, the main towns here.
Few journalists have managed to film openly in Tenancingo, and the ones who have were chased out of town. Still, we thought we'd try.
So our guide doesn't want to be on camera because she works here in the region a lot, and she's afraid to speak out. But you can see these houses. Okay, so she's asking to put the camera down. No se ve, mira dónde está la cámara.
We arrive in Tenancingo on the day of the annual carnival.
Oh wow, so look at that. So it's about to begin and you can see all the men with masks dressed up. They're all gathering. And whoa, look at, they have these like cords, ropes. They look like snakes almost. They're either trying to scare us away or impress us, I'm not sure. Holy shit. Diablote. So he's a little devil. He says he's dressed up as a little devil. They're the Japanese here in black, he's saying. Gracias. Starts pretty early on here.
Under these costumes, the carnival masks something more sinister. Our guide tells us that many of the men wearing masks are tied to the sex trade.
Watch out. This is pretty insane. They're full on whipping each other. And there's another group coming over right now. Okay, they're running. They're coming this way. Watch out.
We're told traffickers who live in the US travel back to settle scores and show off their wealth. The whipping is meant to signify a fight between good and evil.
But it's not an actual competition. El que tiene mucho algo, la gente bebe como una fiesta. So he was happy talking to us. He lived in New York. He came back 6 months ago. But everybody around him started telling him to shut up and not to talk to the media.
¿Por qué no quieres hablar con nosotros? So yeah, so people aren't really very friendly here. They don't really want to talk to us.
De lado hay 3.
Wow! So I was just whipped on my backside, and it hurts. It really hurts. You know, the more time we stay here, I think the less safe it is because people are drinking a lot of beer, and also a lot of amateurs, guys without the mask, are picking up the whips and just like whipping everywhere.
A la verga los gabachos.
¿Qué dicen? Groserías. They're saying bad. They're saying bad words. They're calling us names around here. It's really interesting. They are from one of the sections here, one of the teams, and they say they're the best. But the first thing he's telling us, he told us, like, it's okay for you to film, but only if you talk about the carnival, nothing else. We don't want any other news coming out of this town. So it's pretty obvious here that everybody knows there's sort of a hidden secret here, which is sex trafficking. Oops, I've said that too loud. I might have said that too loud. Because we have a big audience of people. You should film around us. Everybody's looking.
It's becoming obvious we aren't welcome here. We decide to slip away to try and find the place Miranda says she was kept in. All around town, we see unusually big and colorful houses that, believe it or not, our guide says are called houses of ass. Authorities say much of this town has been built with money sent back from the sex slave trade in the United States.
We were just told that the graffiti of the guy behind us with the glasses represents a pimp. They also told us to be very discreet while filming it. But there it is.
It's unclear how Tenancingo became the center of the sex slave trade. One theory is that decades ago, when many factories closed down, enterprising locals discovered how easy and profitable selling women was, and the industry boomed.
Almost everywhere you look, there's some sort of sign of sex trafficking in this town. Right here, we can't get out of the car for safety reasons, but there's a graffiti of a woman. They're trying to raise awareness of sex trafficking. As I say, it's not only beatings that hurt, but words hurt too. And just ahead of us, there's a big sign that says, "Welcome to Tenancingo," and next to it is the emblem of Tenancingo, which is a fort and the legs of a woman. According to our guide, it means that it's the women of sex trafficking, in this case, that are sustaining the town of Tenancingo.
Then, we find what we've been looking for.
Here it is.
Just here, that's this guy here. Paramos.
So we're just going to pass by the house with this green gate here. We can't really point much to it, but this is the house where allegedly Miranda was brought to. This is where her sex traffickers, her pimp lived, and it's this one right here. Again, we can't call too much attention to it, but this is the house. And again, we have to be very discreet, but you can see it's actually beautiful inside. There's a beautiful garden, there's roses and beautifully manicured garden. And you can tell from the inside, a neighbor just came out over there and is wondering what we're doing. But you can tell that, yeah, okay, so they're calling us. They're telling us to go.
Coming out, we gotta go.
¿No está Víctor por ahí?
Está del otro lado, vámonos.
Vámonos.
Relax.
What you can't see is a group of about 20 men lining up across the streets trying to block our exit. We decide for our own safety to flee the town as fast as we can. It turns out we have to leave Tenancingo to find a pimp willing to talk about this place. We found one in a U.S. federal prison.
Hola, ¿todo bien? Soy Mariana. Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
This pimp is from Tenancingo. He's serving almost 20 years for sex trafficking. He agreed to talk to us as long as we disguised his appearance.
¿Cuándo fue la primera vez que escuchaste que un hombre puede hacer dinero con la prostitución de una mujer?
Desde cuando tenía yo como 12 años.
12 años.
Sí. Yo trabajé hasta los 15. A los 15 años yo me junté. Llegó un día de mi compadre y me dijo que pues estaba linda mi mujer. Entonces yo un día que andábamos tomando, él me dijo, dice, ¿por qué no haces dinero? Yo le dije, ¿pero cómo? Me dice, pues la prostitución. Entonces yo le dije, pero ¿cómo vas a aceptar que tu mujer vaya y se acueste con alguien y que venga y que se acueste contigo? Y me dice, dice, pero vas a ver la feria. Platicamos yo y esa muchacha y pues yo la metí a la prostitución.
Que todos tienen mujeres trabajando para ellos.
Sí. Entonces,
¿cuántos son? How many are there?
Imagínense en el pueblo entero cuánto.
Todos están en ese negocio.
Todos están en.
So everybody in Tenancingo,
Sí,
all the men,
sí.
all the women, they're all part of this business, of this network.
Sí, todos esos morrillos de 15 años, 16 años ya tienen.
15, 16 years old and you're already working in this business.
Ellos lo que quieren, algunos, todos tienen la imagen de ser como sus padres.
Los niños en Tenancingo.
Sí, todos dicen que ellos quieren ser padrotes, para más fácil. Un morrito de 10 años, 11, ya viene a veces dice, no, pues yo no quiero estudiar, jefe. Y a veces, no, ¿y entonces qué va a ser? Bueno, yo quiero ser igual que tú.
Niños de 10 años diciendo que no quiero estudiar más, que quiero ser padrote. ¿Cuántas mujeres piensas tú que están aquí trabajando como prostitutas, que son traídas de Tenancingo?
Te puedo decir unas 3,000.
3,000.
Está en Nueva York, Los Ángeles, Las Vegas, Chicago, San Francisco, Miami, Atlanta.
Por
Phoenix,
todos los Estados Unidos. All over.
Todos de España.
It's like a international network. ¿Qué piensas cuando la ves?
No, pues yo me siento mal, pues ella. Sí, la conozco bien. Y pues yo me siento mal por todo lo que le hice y pues que ella sea feliz.
The pimp, the man we meet in jail, is Miranda's pimp. He's in here because of her.
Pero a través del tiempo, pues yo digo que de ella otra manera se tenía que desquitar por lo que yo le hice, por prostituirla, ¿no? Porque ahora yo me doy cuenta que pues es feo que ella pase por 20, 30 hombres, ¿me entiendes? O sea, a mí se me hace lo más imbécil que yo pude hacer en mi vida. Y pues si yo pudiera regresar el tiempo atrás, pues sí, le pediría muchas veces perdón y pues sí, ahora yo digo que ella me perdone y que pues ella pueda hacer su vida bien y pues yo tengo que pagar por lo que hice.
You have daughters, tú tienes hijas. What would you do to a man who would go up to your daughters and take them and make them prostitute for him?
Pues en estos momentos así reaccionaría yo mal. Pero a veces no la culpa nomás lo tiene el hombre, es la mujer.
Tú dices que ellas están haciendo eso porque quieren también.
Te acabo de repetir.
Y las mujeres que trabajan para ti, ¿tú piensas que todas ellas estaban trabajando para ti porque querían?
Nadie las obliga, realmente nadie las obliga. Sinceramente, si alguien las obligara, yo dijera yo sí.
Pero dicen que tienen miedo, porque ustedes amenazan sus familias.
Dígame usted, si usted la dejan sola, usted no va a poder coger el teléfono y decir, ¿sabe qué? Mire, me están obligando, estoy solita.
I did not choose the life of prostitution that I was forced to live. I am a victim of human trafficking.
After 5 years as a sex slave, Miranda finally escaped. And she did so with the help of a stranger, a woman who noticed her bruises and offered to drive her to safety. It was in a diner like this one.
She was sitting like this and that was
Yes,
you?
yeah, and I was here. Then I told her that somebody who wants to harm me was watching at me, so that was the reason why I didn't want her to turn around and talk to me. She told me whatever I want, she was going to be there for me, for whatever I need. I told her few details, and then she knew.
It was the first time she'd been free of her pimp since she was 14 years old. It would be a year before police arrested him.
How are you?
Do you think that more should be done around the United States to combat sex trafficking?
It's going to take a lot of effort on a lot of fronts to end this form of modern-day slavery. It's really a problem that calls for many, many types of solutions. Prosecution is an important part of that. But also, women have to be empowered to learn that they don't have to put up with this type of behavior, that there are options. Also, I think awareness has to be raised that this can be going on underneath your very nose and people don't know about it.
It seems impossible, but it happened to me here in New York, where I went to knows no age, race, color, or gender. This could happen to anybody. I and the other women like me, I am not merchandise, I am not trash.
This is the statement Miranda read at her pimp's sentencing.
I now have what every single person deserves. No matter what, a life with dignity and respect.
Few of the thousands of women trafficked from around Tenancingo have been so lucky. Miranda is one of just 146 women who have seen some measure of justice in the courts.
I feel like the justice came true, and I feel safe for now. But there is a part of me that I still not feel that.
Why?
I know that he will leave from jail one day, and I'm scared that he will be looking for me.
Today, Miranda is free, but thousands of women just like her are not.
Do you think things in Tenancingo are ever going to change?
La verdad no.
No.
No. Porque yo sé que Tenancingo es la peor basura que uno puede vivir en ese pueblo y vive un infierno en ese pueblo. ¿Me entiende?
In Tenancingo, Pimp City, the sex slave trade continues, and a new generation is getting ready.